I reported my own son to the Royal Canadian Mounted Police. The call I made from his bathroom destroyed our family, cost him his freedom, and saved 32 cancer patients from losing everything they had left. I'd make the same call again. My name is Robert Chen, and at 63, I thought I knew my boy, thought I'd raised him right. My late wife Margaret and we'd given everything to make sure our son Daniel had opportunities we never did. Margaret passed 4 years ago from pancreatic cancer, and in those 4 years, Daniel and I had drifted, not fighting, just distant. He was busy building his financial planning practice in Vancouver. I was in Victoria, trying to figure out who Robert Chen was, without Margaret beside him. So when Daniel called me that Tuesday in October, I almost didn't pick up. We texted mostly. Brief. Polite. The kind of communication that makes you wonder when exactly your relationship became a formality. But something made me answer. Dad. His voice had that forced brightness I'd learned to recognize. Claire and I want you to come for dinner this Saturday. It's been too long. 4 months, to be exact. Not that I was counting. What's the occasion? I asked, trying to keep the suspicion out of my voice. Does there need to be one? He laughed, but it landed wrong. Come on, Dad. Take the ferry over. Stay the night. Claire's making that salmon you like. Claire was Daniel's wife of 6 years. Sweet girl, or so I'd thought. Worked as a dental hygienist. They'd bought a house in Kitsilano 2 years ago, one of those renovated heritage homes that cost more than I'd earned in my entire career as a high school physics teacher. What time? I asked. 6:30. And Dad? Bring your appetite. After he hung up, I sat in my armchair, looking out at the October rain, that persistent Victoria drizzle that turns the world gray. Margaret would have known what this was about. She always understood Daniel in ways I didn't. She'd been the bridge between us, and without her, we were two men who shared DNA and not much else. The ferry ride from Swartz Bay to Tisawasan gave me 90 minutes to wonder what my son wanted. Money, probably. That house in Kits couldn't have been cheap, even with his financial planning income. Or maybe they were having a baby. That thought sent an unexpected surge of hope through me. A grandchild, something to rebuild around. I drove my 12-year-old Camry through Vancouver traffic, marveling as always at how much the city had changed. Glass towers everywhere, construction cranes dotting the skyline like mechanical birds. The Vancouver I'd known as a young teacher, affordable and friendly, had become something else entirely. Daniel and Claire's house sat on a quiet tree-lined street, the kind of neighborhood where people paid premium prices for character and location. The heritage home had been beautifully restored, all original wood trim and modern updates hidden behind period-appropriate facades. I parked on the street and grabbed the bottle of wine I'd brought, a decent Okanagan red. Claire answered the door with a hug that felt rehearsed. Robert, so good to see you. She'd never called me Dad, which I understood. I wasn't her father. Claire, you look well. She did, actually. Glowing, even. Maybe I was right about the pregnancy. Daniel appeared behind her, designer jeans and a cashmere sweater that probably cost more than my monthly pension. Dad, come in, come in. He took my coat, and I noticed his watch. New, expensive, a Rolex, if I wasn't mistaken. Their home was immaculate, too immaculate, like something from a magazine rather than a place where people actually lived. Hardwood floors gleamed. Abstract art hung on walls painted in fashionable grays. Through the doorway, I could see their kitchen, all marble countertops and high-end appliances. Beautiful place, I said, because what else do you say? Thanks, Dad. We've put a lot of work into it. Daniel guided me toward the living room. Can I get you something to drink? We've got a nice scotch. Water's fine. He exchanged a glance with Claire. I'd seen that look before, usually right before someone asked me for something. Dinner was uncomfortable in the way that family dinners become when everyone's pretending everything's fine. Claire had indeed made salmon, cedar planked with a maple glaze. It was excellent. The conversation was not. How's retirement treating you, Robert? Claire asked, passing the asparagus. It's an adjustment. Lot of time to think. You should travel, Daniel suggested. See the world. Mom would have wanted that. He had no idea what his mother would have wanted, but I didn't say that. Maybe someday. We ate in near silence for a few minutes before Daniel cleared his throat. So, Dad, we wanted to talk to you about something. Here it comes, I thought. Claire and I have been thinking about the future. Building wealth, securing our family's legacy. He had that smooth tone he probably used with clients. We've developed some incredible investment opportunities through my practice, and we wanted to offer you a chance to get involved. I set down my fork. I'm comfortable with my pension and savings, Daniel. I know, but with inflation, with the way things are going, you could be doing so much better. I've got clients seeing returns of 15–20% annually. If it sounds too good to be true, it's not too good, Dad. It's just smart investing. These are exclusive opportunities, limited to a select group. He leaned forward, enthusiastic now. Cancer treatment funds, actually. We help connect patients with experimental treatments abroad, manage their medical fundraising, and invest the funds while they're raising money. Everyone wins. Patients get cutting-edge treatment, investors get solid returns. Something cold settled in my stomach. You're investing other people's medical fundraising money? Not investing, Dad. Managing. Optimizing. These funds often sit idle for months while patients coordinate treatment. We make that money work for everyone. What do the patients know about this? Claire's smile tightened. They're focused on getting better, Robert. The financial details aren't really their concern. I felt suddenly ill, and it had nothing to do with the salmon. I need to use your bathroom. Upstairs, second door on the left, Daniel said, already moving on to explain his system in more detail. I climbed their stairs slowly, my mind reeling. Margaret had died from cancer. We'd spent our savings on treatments, on hope, on buying her a few more months. If someone had been playing investment games with funds meant for her care. The bathroom was as pristine as the rest of the house. Marble everything, heated floors, one of those rainfall shower heads. I ran cold water over my wrists, trying to calm down. Maybe I was overreacting. Maybe this was legitimate. I opened the medicine cabinet looking for Tums, and that's when I saw it. The cabinet was deep, one of those custom jobs with multiple shelves. On the back shelf, partially hidden behind Claire's cosmetics, was a manila folder. I shouldn't have looked. I knew that even as my hand reached for it. The folder contained printouts, spreadsheets, names I didn't recognize with dollar amounts beside them, but it was the letterhead that made my blood run cold. Vancouver Cancer Support Foundation, a registered charity. And these weren't investment returns. These were disbursements, funds meant for patients, being transferred to numbered accounts. I pulled out my phone and started taking pictures, my hands shaking. Page after page. There were 32 names, amounts ranging from $15,000 to $75,000. Treatment funds, hope funds, life-extending funds. My son was stealing from cancer patients. I heard footsteps on the stairs. Dad, you okay up there? I shoved the folder back, closed the cabinet, flushed the toilet. Fine. Just a minute. When I came down, they were both watching me with expressions I couldn't quite read. Concern? Suspicion? You look pale, Robert, Claire said. Maybe you should sit down. Actually, I think I need to head home. Feeling a bit off. Daniel frowned. But we haven't had dessert. And we still need to discuss the investment opportunity. I'll think about it, I lied. Email me the details. Dad, this is time sensitive. I said, I'll think about it, Daniel. My voice came out sharper than I intended. The drive back to the ferry terminal was a blur. I barely remember boarding, barely remember the crossing. My mind kept circling back to those names, those amounts. 32 people fighting for their lives while my son siphoned away the money that might save them. What does a father do when he discovers his child is a monster? I sat in my Victoria living room until 3 a.m, staring at the photos on my phone. Margaret smiled at me from the mantel. That picture from our 20th anniversary. What would she say? What would she want me to do? I knew the answer. She'd spent her last months in agony, but she never lost her sense of right and wrong. She'd want me to do the right thing, even if it destroyed what was left of our family. At 8 the next morning, I called the RCMP. The officer who answered transferred me to their financial crimes unit. I explained what I'd found, sent the photos. They told me someone would be in touch. 2 days later, Detective Sarah Morrison came to my house. She was younger than I expected, maybe 40, with tired eyes that had seen too much. Mr. Chen, thank you for coming forward. This took courage. It took finding out my son is a thief. She spent 3 hours going through everything with me. The dinner invitation, the investment pitch, the bathroom discovery. She asked if I'd be willing to wear a wire. Go back. Try to get Daniel to explain his system on tape. He's my son, I said. He's also stolen over $900,000 from cancer patients, Mr. Chen. We need your help to build a case. $900,000. I thought I might be sick. Some of these patients have already died, Detective Morrison continued quietly. Their families are still trying to pay back loans they took out for treatments that never happened. Others are going without care because the money they raised is gone. I thought of Margaret, of the desperation in her eyes when the pain got bad, of the way she'd tried to stay strong, even when strength meant nothing against what was consuming her. What do you need me to do? They fitted me with a wire 3 days later. The device was smaller than I expected, taped to my chest with medical adhesive that pulled at my gray chest hair. Detective Morrison and another officer, Detective James Wu, coached me in an unmarked van. Just get him talking about the system, Morrison said. How it works, where the money goes. We need him to incriminate himself clearly. And if he realizes what I'm doing, we'll be right outside. You'll be safe. I wasn't worried about my safety. I was worried about looking my son in the face and lying to him, even though he'd been lying to dozens of desperate families. Daniel sounded pleased when I called. Dad, changed your mind about the investment? I'd like to hear more. Maybe over lunch? We met at a seafood restaurant in Yaletown, one of those places where the bill for two could feed a family for a week. Daniel ordered us both the halibut without asking if that's what I wanted. So you've been thinking about what I said? He was excited, leaning forward. I have. But I need to understand how it works. Where exactly does the money go? He glanced around, then lowered his voice. It's simple, really. The Cancer Foundation I work with. They're understaffed, overwhelmed. They raise these funds for patients, but there's always delays. Ethics reviews, treatment scheduling, international coordination. Meanwhile, the money just sits there, so you invest it. I optimize it, put it into short-term, high-yield opportunities. By the time the patient is ready for treatment, the fund has grown. Everyone benefits. But what if the treatment is needed sooner? He shrugged. That rarely happens. And when it does, there are always other funds, other sources. Look, Dad, these people are desperate. They're grateful for any help. They're not scrutinizing financial statements. The wire felt like it was burning against my skin. This was my son, the boy I'd taught to ride a bike, helped with homework, walked down the aisle at his wedding. What about the patients who die? I asked quietly. Something flickered in his eyes. Annoyance? That's the beauty of it. If a patient passes away, the unused funds revert to the foundation. Well, technically to the foundation's operating account, which I manage. Tragic, obviously, but the money doesn't go to waste. The money goes to you. Dad, I'm providing a service. I deserve compensation. He sat back, defensive now. You don't understand how expensive it is to live in Vancouver. This house, Claire's lifestyle expectations, the pressure to keep up. My legitimate practice barely covers our overhead. So you steal from dying people. His face hardened. I provide hope. I help them access treatments. If I make money facilitating that, what's the harm? The harm is they're dying without the treatments they paid for, Daniel. He stared at me for a long moment. You're wearing a wire, aren't you? My silence was answer enough. You're actually wearing a fucking wire. He stood up, and for a second I thought he might hit me. My own father. Sit down, Daniel. Why? So you can get more evidence against your own son? He threw his napkin on the table. You know what? I'm done. You want to destroy your family over some people who were going to die anyway? Fine. But don't expect me to forgive this. He walked out. I sat there alone with 2 plates of expensive halibut and the weight of what I'd done. Detective Morrison and Wu arrested Daniel at his office 2 hours later. Claire was brought in for questioning, but released. They couldn't prove she knew the extent of what he'd been doing, though I had my doubts. The preliminary hearing was 3 weeks later. I sat in the courtroom and watched my son, handcuffed, plead not guilty to 32 counts of fraud and theft. His lawyer argued that he'd always intended to return the funds, that this was merely aggressive financial management, not theft. The Crown Attorney, a sharp woman named Patricia Lee, methodically destroyed that argument. She brought in patients, families. People who'd held bake sales and GoFundMe campaigns, who'd mortgaged their homes and borrowed from relatives, all to raise money for treatments that never came, because Daniel had optimized their funds into his own accounts. An elderly Chinese woman named Mrs. Wang testified about her husband. They'd raised $60,000 for experimental immunotherapy in San Diego. When the appointment came, the foundation told them the funds were temporarily unavailable. Mr. Wang died 6 weeks later. The money never did become available. Daniel wouldn't look at her, wouldn't look at any of them. He looked at me, though. Across that courtroom, my son's eyes met mine, and I saw hatred there. Pure, undiluted hatred. The trial lasted 4 weeks. The Crown proved that Daniel had diverted over $940,000 from cancer patients' treatment funds. Some he'd lost in bad investments. Some he'd used to fund his lifestyle, his house, his watch, his car, his wife's jewelry, all purchased with money meant to save lives. The jury took 6 hours to convict him on all counts. At sentencing, Judge Howard Chen, no relation, though Daniel's lawyer tried to get the judge recused on that basis, heard from victims. 22 people spoke. Cancer survivors who'd gone without treatment, widows and widowers who'd watched their spouses die, children who'd lost parents. Then the judge asked if I wanted to make a statement. I stood up slowly. My hands shook. Daniel stared straight ahead, refusing to acknowledge me. Your Honor, that's my son. I raised him. I taught him right from wrong, or I thought I did. When his mother was dying of cancer, we used every penny we had trying to save her. We would have sold our house, sold everything, if we'd thought it would buy her one more day. So when I discovered he was stealing from people in that same desperate situation, my voice broke. I knew what I had to do. I knew it would cost me my son. But those 32 people deserved justice more than I deserved a relationship with someone who could do what he did. I sat down. Daniel still wouldn't look at me. Judge Chen sentenced him to 8 years in federal prison and ordered him to repay every dollar, with interest. The money was mostly gone, of course. Spent, lost, vanished. The victims would see pennies on the dollar, if that. Claire filed for divorce before Daniel even entered prison. She claimed she'd known nothing, that she was a victim too. Maybe that was true. I don't know anymore. I haven't spoken to Daniel in the 18 months since his sentencing. He's refused all my attempts to visit. His lawyer sends me updates, legal necessities about appeals and such. All appeals have been denied. I dream about him sometimes. Not the man in the courtroom, but the boy he used to be. The kid who cried when we had to put our dog down, who volunteered at the food bank every Christmas, who held his mother's hand when the pain got too bad. I don't know when that boy became the man who could steal from dying people. Maybe he was always there, and I just didn't want to see it. Last month, I got a letter from Mrs. Wang, the elderly woman whose husband died waiting for treatment. She wanted to thank me for coming forward. She wrote that her husband had been a good man who deserved better than what happened to him, and that I'd done right by his memory. I cried reading that letter, cried for her husband, for all the victims, for the son I'd lost long before I'd made that phone call. People ask me if I regret it, if I'd do it differently knowing what it would cost me. I tell them the truth. I lost my son the day he decided dying people's money was his to take. All I did was make sure he didn't hurt anyone else. Margaret would understand. She'd hate it, hate that our family came to this. But she'd understand. She taught me that doing the right thing isn't always doing the easy thing. Sometimes it means losing everything to save strangers who'll never know your name. I'm 64 now, living alone in Victoria, estranged from my only child, but I sleep at night. 22 cancer patients who spoke at that trial got some measure of justice. The Vancouver Cancer Support Foundation implemented new oversight procedures. Other patients, people I'll never meet, might be protected because one father made a hard call. That has to be enough. Because sometimes the hardest thing a parent has to do is love their child enough to hold them accountable. Even when accountability means prison, means estrangement, means the end of everything you thought your family was. I made that call for my son's bathroom, knowing exactly what it would cost. I'd make it again. That's not vengeance. That's just doing what's right, even when right breaks your heart. To anyone reading this who sees something wrong, something criminal, something evil being done by someone you love, I understand your conflict. I've lived it. But I'm asking you to think about the victims. Think about the people being hurt. Your silence might preserve your relationship, but it also preserves their suffering. Make the hard call. Do the right thing. You'll lose something precious, but you'll keep something more precious still. Your integrity, your conscience, your ability to look at yourself in the mirror. I lost my son, but I found out what kind of man I am when everything's on the line. That's worth knowing, even when the knowledge costs you everything.